Now, I need to warn you. What you're about to hear is deeply disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. This isn't just about secrets. It's about control, hunger, and obedience. People see Oprah and think healing. I saw hunger wrapped in silk. They brought me to her basement to unlock a crate. Sealed, humming, alive. I heard crying. Then the crate moved. Then she walked in, fingerless, smiling, and said two words that shook me. I'm hungry. I wasn't chasing ghosts or investigating murders in the woods. I'm not a whistleblower, and I'm not one of those YouTube truth seekers who think every blinking light is a government cover-up. I'm a locksmith, a certified biometric systems specialist with over a decade of field experience. I've got 2 degrees, vendor certifications from 3 major vault companies, and a wall full of framed credentials that mean nothing to anyone but insurance providers. Most of my work comes from discreet security firms, private estate managers, and quiet referrals in the hills. The kind of clients who want you to forget the address once the job's done. My job is simple. Open what others can't. Safes, vaults, panic rooms. Most days it's harmless. Reprogramming gate locks, rescuing wine from climate-controlled cabinets, or fixing bad installations. The worst job I'd ever taken before this? Removing a deadbolt from a panic room after a C-list actor faked his own kidnapping for a TMZ stunt. I've never had a reason to be afraid, until now. The request came encrypted, standard protocol for high-profile clients. The job, biometric override on a storage container. Nothing else. No pictures, no specs, just one phrase. Manual biometric bypass required, high priority. The sender ID was anonymous, but when I decrypted the metadata, one acronym stood out, OWN, and then the address, a private hillside estate in Beverly Hills. I recognized the gate code format immediately. Military-grade perimeter systems, 0 open records. That's when I saw her name in the job registry's fine print. Oprah Winfrey. My heart skipped. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Not just a payday, a legacy client. The kind of job you use to negotiate your next 10. I signed the NDA, accepted the transfer, cleared my schedule. The gate opened before I even touched the buzzer. No greeter, no assistant. Just 2 men in black suits standing perfectly still on the gravel driveway. Sunglasses, pale expressions, no earpieces, no names. One of them stepped forward and handed me a tablet. Thumbprint here, sign below. 5 pages of legal boilerplate flew past my eyes. Terms like client anonymity clause, containment discretion, biometric neutrality. The kind of language that's either above your pay grade or beneath your understanding, probably both. I hesitated, just for a second. The other man shifted, not aggressively, just a move that said, "We don't wait." I signed. They took my phone, scanned my face and hands, ran a portable magnetometer over my toolbox. No words, no warning, just a motion to follow. The entrance wasn't grand, no wide open archways or fountains, no marble floors or soft lighting, just a heavy industrial door that hissed when it shut behind us. And then we went down, stairs first, then a narrow hall. The walls were a strange, polished concrete, cleaner than any garage, colder than any basement. The further we walked, the quieter it became. No paintings, no shelves, no sounds, not even ventilation, just our footsteps bouncing off sterile walls. I tried to break the silence. This a wine cellar upgrade? Or old bomb shelter? They didn't answer. So, will I be meeting Ms. Winfrey? The guard in front stopped. His voice was even, robotic. Focus on your job. We kept moving. That's when I noticed the air, not the smell, though there was one. Something faintly metallic beneath the bleach. It was the density of it. The way each breath felt fuller than the last, like I was inhaling something more than oxygen. And then the sound, not in my ears, in my chest. A subtle hum, vibrating just below the ribs. Not electrical, not mechanical, biological. We stopped in front of a thick steel door. One of the men pressed his palm to the reader. It scanned, blinked green. The lock hissed open. What waited on the other side wasn't a vault or a lab. It was a hallway, longer, narrower, lined with fluorescent lights that flickered in a rhythm just slightly offbeat, enough to make you feel like your eyes were glitching. The smell was stronger here, sterile but sour beneath, like something had been cleaned up, just not completely. And at the very end of the corridor, resting dead center on the polished floor, was the crate. Matte black, waist high, no wheels, no labels, no hinges, just a slick, glass-like biometric panel embedded in the front. It didn't belong there. It didn't belong anywhere. I approached slowly, as if it might react. The closer I got, the more the temperature dropped. I could feel it through my boots. It wasn't the air conditioner. It was the object itself. The crate was cold, alive maybe, listening. At first I thought I imagined it. Just a flicker of sound, soft, high-pitched, somewhere between a whimper and static. I paused, leaned in slightly, holding my breath. There it was again, faint, wet, muffled like it was coming from behind a layer of foam. A baby, crying, not loud, not distressed, just present. I stood frozen, one hand still hovering above the biometric panel. The logic part of my brain kicked in. Maybe there's an intercom glitch. Maybe it's a security feed from somewhere else on the estate. I turned to the security guard. Do you hear that? He didn't flinch, didn't even look up from his station by the door. He just said, focus on the crate. I tried. I really did. I unpacked my kit, set down my tablet, pulled the biometric bypass tools I only use for deep security systems. The kind built into military bunkers or research black sites. I told myself I'd treat this like any other job, but then thump, a deep muffled impact from inside the crate. I jumped back, nearly knocked over my own toolbox. The noise wasn't sharp, it was slow, like something shifted, something heavy and soft, like a sack of wet meat dropped onto a countertop. I stared at the box. The guard didn't move. What was that? He blinked once, still not looking at me. Just focus. Then he added, almost like it was a joke, but without smiling, they get restless. My hands were shaking. I didn't realize it until I dropped a tool on the floor and it clanged louder than it should have. The sterile air swallowed the sound almost immediately. I looked at the biometric reader again. The problem was clear. The system needed a valid fingerprint scan to unlock, but the sensor was disabled, jammed, maybe corrupted from inside. Whatever was in there didn't want to stay in, and someone didn't want me to see it. I'll need the print, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, to test the access. Can you bring the client? For the first time, the guard actually looked at me. I'll go get Mother. Then he walked out, leaving me alone in the concrete room with the crate. Mother? I ran through every possible scenario in my head. Was that some kind of internal code name? A nickname for the estate manager? But even as I waited, tools idle in my lap, I knew. Mother wasn't a title. It was a presence. The crying got louder, not screaming, just closer. And now there were two voices, slightly out of sync, harmonizing like sick twins, the kind of sound that makes your spine curve involuntarily. I moved toward the crate, slowly, not to open it, just to feel, just to prove to myself it was inert. Then I heard the footsteps, slow, smooth, measured like a performance. The crying stopped instantly. She stepped into view like she'd always been there. Oprah, her skin glowed, but not with light. It was too perfect. Not even pores, not even reflection. And her hands, my eyes locked on them. No fingerprints, just smooth, waxy skin, as if they'd been burned away or erased. I'm ready, she said, her voice warm and trembling like someone stepping into a chapel. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She stepped closer, The air got warmer, heavier. I know it won't read me. That's why we brought you. Her eyes locked onto mine, wet, wide, expectant. I'm hungry. It wasn't a metaphor. She meant it, and that's when I saw it. Her mouth was slightly open, not smiling, drooling. Not the kind of drool from age or medication, the kind that comes before a feast. They didn't even look at me when they pulled me away. The moment the crate clicked open, 2 new guards stepped out from the shadows, cleaner uniforms, stronger builds. One grabbed my elbow, the other took my tools. No words, no explanation, just pressure. Calm, constant pressure. I caught one last glimpse as I was turned toward the hall. Oprah's face softly illuminated by the crate's interior glow. Her lips slightly parted, her eyes wide and shining like she was seeing something holy, and both of her arms reaching forward into the box. What she pulled out, I never saw, but I heard it, a sound like wet silk peeling off glass, a faint cooing, then a laugh. Her laugh, sharp and delighted, childlike. That was the last thing I heard before they led me around a corner, through a plain emergency exit, and out into the night. No goodbyes, no explanations. My van was already parked at the front gate, engine running. My tools were placed neatly in the front seat, and when I checked my phone, a wire transfer had cleared. High 5 figures, no note, no receipt, no contact. It was over. Technically. I sat in the van for what felt like an hour. I couldn't move. My hands were locked around the steering wheel, knuckles white, skin clammy. My brain tried to tell me it was a job like any other, that I'd done what I was paid to do, that I hadn't seen anything, that Oprah Winfrey, the Oprah, hadn't stood 3 feet from me drooling with anticipation as I opened a box full of crying. But my body knew better. I turned the key and started down the hill. The road was steep and winding, flanked by trees that looked like shadows folded in on themselves. My headlights cut through the dark like fog, revealing just enough to make me feel blind. Every few minutes, I glanced at the rearview mirror. Nothing behind me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me out. 20 minutes into the descent, I pulled over. There was a turnout, a gravel shoulder near a bend in the road. I threw the van into park, stepped out, and dry heaved into the dirt. Nothing came up. My stomach was too tight, too sick with something deeper. The silence was unbearable, the kind that feels intentional, like the world is holding its breath, like someone is listening. I wiped my mouth and sat on the edge of the van's bumper, staring into the night. That's when the question hit me. What did I just help unlock? And worse, why didn't they want me to see it? They didn't threaten me, they didn't warn me, they didn't erase the footage or wipe my memory, they just paid me. Like I was no longer relevant. Like whatever I was, I no longer mattered. But something inside me couldn't let go. Maybe it was guilt, maybe curiosity, maybe something else entirely. I thought about my credentials, the degrees on my wall, the code of ethics I'd signed when I became a certified biometric technician. Do no harm, ensure privacy, report anomalies. But no one trained me for this. I got back in the van and sat with the keys in my hand. And then I did the one thing I never do. I broke my own rule. I turned the van around. I didn't have a plan. I knew I couldn't walk through the front gate again, not without raising alarms. But I wasn't just a locksmith. I was a systems engineer. And I'd seen enough during my descent to understand how this house was structured. Most high-end estates use a dumbwaiter or service tunnel to ferry food and supplies between floors without interrupting the main space. And while I was being escorted, I'd clocked a small sub-panel built into the hallway near the wine storage room. If I was lucky, it fed into the main kitchen. If I was unlucky, I'd find out what was really in that crate. I parked down the hill, killed the lights, and approached the perimeter on foot. My gear was limited. No access to a digital scanner, but I still had my manual picks, a thermal knife, and a bypass shim for older sub-door frames. It took 15 minutes to breach the outer hatch. Another 5 to find the dumbwaiter shaft and drop inside. The metal rails were cold. The air reeked of citrus and bleach. My fingers gripped the inside as I shimmied down, one boot at a time, careful not to let anything clang. I landed in what looked like a food prep corridor. No windows, gray tile. A faint yellow glow coming from a nearby doorway. I crept forward, heart in my throat. The kitchen was empty. Stainless steel counters, giant fridge units, surgical lighting overhead. Everything clean, too clean, like it was scrubbed after something messy. And on the stove, still hot, still gently bubbling, was a massive cast iron pot. Something was cooking. The smell hit me instantly. Not rotten, not foul, but wrong. Sweet, sour, metallic, like syrup poured over old blood. I walked to the stove on autopilot. My hands moved before my brain could catch up. I leaned in. Inside the pot, a thick broth, red, oily. Floating in the center, partially submerged, was a limb. Small, pink, curved slightly like it had been relaxed in sleep. It wasn't fake. It wasn't a doll. It was real. I felt my legs start to give out. Then she spoke, from behind me, from the shadows. Software warm, certain. Some delicacies aren't made to nourish the body. They awaken it. I turned, slowly, and there she was, Oprah, smiling, spoon in hand, walking toward the pot. And she asked me the one question that finally broke me. Have you ever tasted something that made your soul hungrier? She walked in like she owned the air. No guards, no entourage. Just her, Oprah Winfrey, wrapped in a silk shawl, barefoot, moving like her feet never fully touched the tile. She didn't flinch at the sight of me standing at her stove, didn't raise her voice, didn't act surprised that I'd come back. She just smiled. Curiosity, she said, is the first step to elevation. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. My eyes darted between her face and the pot, still simmering, still breathing steam into the room, like something alive. She walked to the drawer without breaking eye contact, opened it, pulled out a long, polished silver spoon. Most people run at this part, she said gently, as if speaking to a child. But not you. She dipped the spoon into the pot with care, not hesitation. She stirred once, then let it rest, lifting out a deep red broth that shimmered like engine oil. The smell hit harder now, no longer metallic. It was something else. Memory. That's what it smelled like childhood, like heat, like something private you thought you buried. She held the spoon toward me, letting it hover in the space between us. One taste, she said. That's all it takes, and you'll never feel small again. I shook my head, barely. What is this? I whispered. Her smile widened. Not cruel, proud. It's called wonder. Some call it marrow. Some call it promise. But she gestured vaguely to the ceiling, or maybe to the people above it. We know it by its true name. She stepped closer. Alignment. You've heard the stories, haven't you? The underground menus, the exclusive dinners, the things served without labels or names. She leaned in, and her voice dropped to a murmur. The truth is, it's not about taste. That's what the masses believe. That food is pleasure. That hunger is weakness. That eating is maintenance. She shook her head slowly. But the powerful, we eat for clarity. Her eyes drifted toward the pot, almost reverent. Inside every being are pieces of potential that go unrealized, unawakened. And when consumed, they don't just feed, they unlock. She lifted the spoon again, slowly turning it in the air. The thymus, the pineal, the spinal stem, the softest pieces, the ones that hold the most memory. I couldn't breathe. She stepped closer until I could see the faint wetness at the corners of her lips, not saliva. Something thicker, viscous, reflecting the overhead lights and ribbons. The body has doors, she said softly, but they only open with certain keys. She extended the spoon again. This is one of them. I took a step back. My heel hit the bottom of a steel shelf. The room suddenly felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were listening. Why me? I finally managed to say. She tilted her head, studied me. Because you delivered. Because you looked. Because you stayed. Then she said the words I hadn't realized I feared most. You're already halfway through the door. My knees locked. My mouth was dry. My body screamed to run, but my feet wouldn't move. It felt like I was anchored to the floor by something inside me. That's when she placed the spoon back on the counter. She wasn't angry. She wasn't disappointed. She was patient. It's okay, she said with that warm, glowing voice that made America feel safe for 3 decades. Not everyone tastes it here. She turned, walking back toward the hallway. Some take it with them. I stayed frozen in place until she disappeared around the corner, silk shawl trailing behind her like smoke. I didn't speak. I didn't think. I ran down the service corridor, through the dumbwaiter shaft, out into the night. The air outside hit like ice, but even then, the scent clung to me, on my skin, in my lungs, like I'd swallowed the atmosphere of that kitchen and couldn't cough it back up. I drove like hell down that canyon road. My tires nearly skidded off a turn. I didn't care. I just needed distance. I just needed to feel human again. The mansion faded into the dark behind me, but it didn't leave me. I didn't notice it until I got home. I parked in the driveway, engine still running. I sat there in silence, hands shaking on the wheel, sweat cooling on the back of my neck, and then I saw it. In the passenger seat, a clear plastic container, snapped shut, condensation beating on the inside, a plastic spoon tucked neatly on top, and a note, simple, handwritten. The best wonders are from within. I didn't touch it, I didn't throw it away. I just stared at it because some part of me wanted to. And that's when I knew they don't need to threaten you, or chase you, or drag you back. All they have to do is feed you. If you made it this far, you're already halfway through the door. Would you have taken the bite? Comment below. And if you want more stories like this, tap subscribe. Just don't open anything you can't close.